Hey folks, Todd here. Today we're going to install the Go Rhino Swing-A-Way tire carrier on this Jeep Gladiator. The tools we're using for this installation, we've got some ratchets with an extension. For sockets, we'll need a 1/2 inch and a 9/16, along with a 7mm, 14mm, and 21mm. For wrenches, we'll need a 7/16, a 3/4, and a 15/16. And for Allen wrenches, we'll need a 1/16, a 5/32, and a 3/8. Let's go ahead and get started. First, we're going to locate our wedge slider. We're going to take our long bolt with flat washer and lock washer and insert it into the hole. Now make sure you have that wedge slider oriented properly. The top end is longer and the short end is on the bottom. Go ahead and slide that into our hitch receiver with the point end facing out. Now we can go ahead and insert the hitch base into the 2-inch hitch receiver and align the holes and insert the hitch pin. Now, this is a universal application, and your hitch tube might not be very long, and it might actually push the wedge slider out the other side. If it does, it's not the end of the world. It's fine. You can just go ahead and reinsert that wedge slider back into the hitch tube, and then go ahead and line up the holes on that the bolt to the weld nut that's on the inside of the hitch base. Now we're going to go ahead and get that snugged up and tighten it down with a 14mm. Now that we have the hitch base locked in place, we're going to go ahead and locate our top and bottom small friction bearings. Go ahead and insert those into the hitch base. Now we're going to locate the SwingAway arm and insert our larger friction bearings into the upper and lower portions of that SwingAway arm. All right, now take a thrust bearing and put it on the lower portion of the hitch base. Now, as we guide our SwingAway arm up to it, we're going to put a thrust bearing on top of the SwingAway arm, line everything up, and get it slid together. Now, as you're sliding things together, things might fall apart, whatnot. Just put everything together as it's going together, and make sure you grab your shoulder bolt. Once everything is together, run the shoulder bolt all the way through from the top to the bottom. Make sure you have the flat washer on the top side of the shoulder bolt. Once you get everything lined up, take the flat washer and lock washer on the bottom side of the shoulder bolt, slide that in place, and then attach your hex nut. All right, now we've got everything lined up. We're going to go ahead and tighten down that shoulder bolt using a 3/8 Allen wrench up at the top and a 15/16 wrench at the bottom. Now we're going to go ahead and attach our mount extension to the swing out arm. Now what you want to do is make sure, first of all, the mount extension is oriented properly. So you'll see a gusset on the bottom side. That means to make sure it stays towards the bottom. Now also on the swing arm, we want to make sure we put this in the right place. So we took our tire and measured it. It's a 35-inch tire. So we went halfway to the halfway point, 17 inches from the bottom of the swing out, and made a small mark on the swing out at 17.5 inches up. Now we want to make sure that our mount extension, the center of the mounted extension, is just to the above side or right even with that mark that we made, and go ahead and insert our hardware. We're going to use a bolt with washer on the outside, and as it goes through the swing arm, on the other side we're going to have a washer, flat washer, and nut. Get all of those lined up and hand tight first. Now that we've got all of our hardware lined up and snug hand tight, we're going to go ahead and tighten it all down. We're going to use a 3/4 inch wrench on the inside and a 3/4 inch ratchet and socket on the outside. All right, now we're going to go ahead and attach our mounting flange to the mounting extension. You want to make sure that it's oriented properly, so the top of that flange needs to be angled back towards the vehicle. You're going to slide that in place. Now, this is a universal application, so depending on the width of your wheel and where the offset is, you'll want to adjust it as needed. So we've already gone ahead and made those marks. We're going to slide that in place and then attach our hardware from the top. So we're going to use a small bolt with a flat washer and lock washer. Lock washer goes on first, and the flat washer. Line that up into the weld nut on the inside of the flange. Get both of those bolts in place hand tight. And once both of those bolts are in place, we're going to take our longer bolt with a flat washer and go through the side. And on the other side, we're going to do a flat washer, lock washer, and nut. Once we get that all hand tight, we're going to go back and tighten it all up. The small bolts will take a 1/2 inch socket, and the large bolt will take 9/16. Okay, now I've got the spare tire face down. That way the mounting surface of the wheel is going to be faced up. This way we're going to be able to use our extension flange to mark and match up the lug pattern from the wheel. So we're going to go ahead and take our extension flange and place it on top of the mounting surface of the wheel and line the holes up. Once we've got them nice and lined up, to get everything perfectly lined up, we're going to go ahead and take our bolts out of our kit. We've got some stainless steel carriage bolts. Those are going to drop down into the holes. The flat spots on the carriage bolts are going to go in between the flat spots and the elongated holes to help us line everything up nicely. Go in all three of those. Make sure you kind of wiggle around just a little bit to get it all nice and perfect. Once it's set in place, take a silver Sharpie, that's what I'm going to use, and make a mark on each side of each one of the carriage bolts. And that way we've got a locator for whenever we set it up in place. All right, now we've got everything marked. We can go ahead and lift this out and go to our mounting extension. All right, now we're going to go ahead and take our extension piece. We're going to line it up to the holes in the mount. All right, and we're going to take our carriage bolts and run them through the back. Now, we've also got some optional retainer washers that can slide over there and hold those carriage bolts in place to keep them from sliding around. But since we've got everything marked, we're going to go ahead and just line up the carriage bolts to the marks and use the provided hardware to lock everything down. We've got a flat washer, lock washer, and a nut. We're going to get everything kind of hand tight first, and then we'll tighten it down with a 19 millimeter once everything is hand tight. All right, now let's go ahead and grab our wheel and set that in place. All right, now with the help of a friend, we're going to go ahead and lift it up and set it onto the lugs. All right, now we're going to go ahead and install the lug nuts in place, and we're going to snug them down with a 21 millimeter. Okay, now for the camera relocation, we're going to start off with the tailgate down. You're going to notice we've got an access panel in the tailgate. It's held in by 4 screws. Those are T30 screws. So we're going to go ahead and remove all 4 of them with a T30 or T30 Torx bit. All right, now we're going to go ahead and pull the panel off and show you how to remove the camera. All right, now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a fastener removal tool and remove this fastener that holds the harness kind of in place. We want a little bit more slack with that harness, so we're going to get that out of the way. Next, I'm going to show you how to remove the camera harness. So what we're going to do on the opposite side of the harness, where it plugs in, there's a little tab. We're going to push on that and pull out. So here's where that tab is. You're going to push down on. Sometimes it's helpful to kind of push in a little bit to the camera before you pull out to disengage it. Now we're going to go ahead and push that off to the side. And this clip that goes around here, what we need to do is we're going to pry away on both sides of the clip out and then slide it back. And that whole clip slides out from the housing. Now we've got another little tab up on the top side of the housing. We're going to push in on that tab. Now make sure you're holding on to the camera on the other side of the tailgate because it's going to pop right out the other side of the tailgate. Let's go ahead and take it over to tabletop and remove the camera. Okay, now before we get started here, I want to make sure that we keep the orientation proper on here so we don't have the camera installed upside down. So up here at the top, this is the top of the camera housing. Make sure you keep in mind the orientation there. So the way this is going to come apart is we're going to take a 1/16 Allen wrench and we're going to take out these 3 screws. All right, now we're going to very gently pull the camera housing apart. Now this camera is out of a 2024 model, so it's a little bit different from some of the earlier models. All right, so now we'll go ahead and show you how to install the camera into the new housing. So this is our housing right here. The top of the housing is right up top here. And then we've got the camera bracket down here. Now what we're going to do, go ahead and line up the camera bracket to the housing. And we've got some hardware. We're going to start one side. So we've got a bolt with a washer. It's an Allen head bolt. It's going to come in through the bottom side of that housing. Once that goes through, we're going to attach a washer, lock washer, and then a nut. And then just kind of get that spun in place and get it just kind of run down. We don't want it tight. We want to be able to still swing that bracket out. So let's get that in place. And it's kind of a tight fit, so you have to pull back on the bolt a little bit to get it started. All right, well, once it is in place, you'll still be able to kind of swing that bracket out. So let's go ahead and swing that bracket out. Now we're going to take our camera. Now the camera, if you notice the stem of the camera where it attaches, is going to be coming out this way. That's how you have it oriented properly. So go ahead and put it in behind the camera bracket. So the camera bracket kind of traps it in place, and so the camera is facing the hole in the housing. And we're going to slide that bracket back in place and attach the hardware on the opposite side. So we're going to use the same hardware. We've got a bolt with washer. It comes up from the bottom. Washer, lock washer, and nut, and get that drawn down too. Okay, now this next part is a little bit of balancing act. We want to make sure that we hold the camera so that it is straight going out the camera hole. And then also we're going to tighten down the hardware. We're going to use an Allen wrench. It's a 5/32 Allen wrench, and then a 7/16 wrench to hold the nut in place. And get that tightened down. All right, now here is our license plate bracket. So let's bring that over, and we're going to take and put the camera bracket inside the license plate bracket. We've got a couple of holes it's going to line up. Now we're going to go ahead and slide that in place and line it up to the holes. Now you're going to notice we've got another piece that's over here that would be going in place as well, but with the attachment, the harness where it plugs into the camera would not allow this to go on. So we're not going to use this piece. We're going to go ahead and set that to the side. All right, and now in the holes there, we're going to use the same hardware we did before. We've got the Allen bolts with a washer. It's going to go through with a flat washer, lock washer, and a nut on each side. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and tighten that down with the same tools. We're going to use a 7/32 Allen wrench and a 7/16 wrench. Okay, now we went ahead and separated our camera harness from our tailgate lock harness. That's just removing some tape. We didn't want to bore you guys with pulling all that off on camera, so you just went ahead and did it. We also followed that harness back and unplugged it from where it was plugged in behind this access panel. Now this is an optical harness, so what we did is we went out and we acquired a harness extension, and so I'm going to show you how to extend that underneath your tailgate and up through the carrier. All right, now we're going to go ahead and pop our panel back in at the back of the tailgate. And next we're going to go ahead and button up our tailgate. We're going to take our camera housing and pop it back in from the front side of the tailgate into, and then reattach our clip. That's just going to slide right back into place. You might have to kind of wiggle it around to get everything to line up. Slides in from one side and goes to the other. All right, now we're going to go ahead and replace our access panel cover and reinstall those 4 T30 Torx bolts. All right, now let's go ahead and take a peek underneath where the cable is coming out from the bumper, and I'll show you where we're going to route that cable up the swing arm. All right, now what we're going to do is take our camera cable, and we're going to route it into this open channel, run it all the way up to where our hinge area is, and then run it through the outside, and then marry that over into the next channel, follow that over, and then we're going to go up. There's going to be a little hole, going to route that up, and then find the appropriate hole to run the connector through to the other side, and we're just going to let that hang for right now. All right, let's go ahead and take this over to the tire carrier. We're going to go ahead and connect the camera. All right, now we can go ahead and set it in place on top of our extension. Now we've got a couple of threaded holes already in our extension, so we're going to use the included hardware. We've got a bolt going through a lock washer, then a flat washer. We've got 2 of those, 1 for each of those holes. We're going to screw those in place. I've gone ahead and slid the license plate bracket all the way in because we've got enough room, and we're going to go ahead and tighten those down with a 7/16. All right, now we can go ahead and install our glide to the bottom of our swing arm. So we've got a couple of bolts with washers and lock washers going to go up underneath and thread right into it. And we're going to tighten it down with a 7/16. Well, that concludes the installation. If you have any questions, call the experts or visit us online.